This is one of the most advanced supercars ever built. It stands under 3 foot tall. It has no doors.
It's got a rear view camera, GPS, and it made almost 300 horsepower.
More than any supercar at the time. By all accounts, this car was primed to be a huge success.
But it failed to ever make it to production, and it was abandoned for almost 20 years.
There are a lot of supercars that didn't make it to production. We wanted to know, why was that? Well, today, we're about to find out.
We're headed down under to the National Motor Museum in Adelaide to check out why the 1969 Holden Hurricane and some of the world's coolest supercars never made it to production.
This is a 1969 Holden Hurricane. Yeah, it had a mid-mounted 4.2-liter Holden V8 that made over 260 horsepower, which admittedly isn't anything to write home about today, but this car wasn't built to be fast. Yeah, it was built to be cool and to show the world, hey, this is the future of cars. Now, Holden was one of Australia's only car manufacturers, and in the mid-60s, they were in a bitter rivalry with Ford, who were one of the only other manufacturers that actually made their cars in Australia. Ford Australia had just released the Falcon, which was almost an immediate success in the land down under. And to counter Ford's success, Holden dropped the FB in 1961, which was an immediate flop. By the time of its production, the FB was already considered dated. It had 50s-inspired tail fins and a wraparound windscreen and dogleg A-pillars. So Holden was on the out, and they needed something to get out front of their new rival, so they tasked the design team to come up with something new. Something that would look into the future. And this is what we got.
Oh my God, look at that paint.
This really speaks to my bass boat loving heart.
I love it. That is a thick sparkle.
Look at the tack and speed up and how the whole dash comes up with the roof. This thing's wild.
Also, that center piece right there, second turn, first turn, second turn, that is part of the GPS.
Hey, if we get trapped and never get out, we love you.
I feel like this thing's gonna smash my legs in.
Yeah, best of luck. Watch your Jerry's feeling trapped.
First of all, my legs don't touch the pedals.
Can you get them to be better than that, or that's it? Oh, you're touching the pedal.
Yeah, I'm already there, but my left leg is so jammed in here that I honestly can't. Like, you couldn't drive it.
I know, you can't shift.
All right, I'm done. Get me out of this thing.
Save me.
Before we sat in this car, I was like, oh, this is the coolest feature. As soon as it came crushing down on me and my claustrophobia kicked in, I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever done. Get me out of this thing.
This next car was donned the supercar that was too dangerous to be sold. The TVR Speed 12 was TVR's attempt at a Le Mans winning GT1 machine that would compete with cars like Mercedes CLK GTR, the McLaren F1 GTR, and the Porsche 911 GT1, some of the coolest cars of all time. It was the UK's attempt at a Dodge Viper, and because only one production car was needed for GT1 homologation, automakers went absolutely nuts. Right, part of the reason why it was so dangerous is because it had a 7.7 liter V12. They basically took two inline sixes, slapped them together. The thing made over 1,000 horsepower. Yeah, I hear it was so powerful it actually blew apart a 1,000 horsepower rated Dyna. But this car wasn't just powerful, it was also light as hell. A Kevlar and fiberglass chassis weighed only 2,200 pounds, which is almost 200 pounds lighter than a Miata. TVR decided to build a road car out of the Speed 12 in the early 2000s, but they only built 3 because after TVR owner and CEO Peter Wheeler drove one home, he immediately canned the project, saying the car was simply unusable on the road, and in his opinion, it was too powerful, which is a pretty crazy thing to say as the CEO of the company. The CEO's like, guys, we I can't have all that blood on my hands. So 3 road versions were built in total, 2 were just used as race spares, and only 1 factory-built version remains on planet Earth. Oh. And it sold this year for $750,000, which is honestly not that bad. I mean, a one-of-one race car? Yeah, with a bit of a history to it. 1,000 horsepower? Yeah. That could kill you? Yeah. Are you kidding me? Dude, take my money.
We use today's sponsor, Keeps, to prevent hair loss, stimulate hair growth, or just take care of the hair we have. Because we need it. 2 out of 3 guys experience male pattern baldness by the time they're 35. That indescribable feeling you get when clinically proven treatments are delivered right to your front door because you talk to Keeps licensed medical providers from the comfort of your home. Dazzling results on the top of our heads, a change you can feel. Hair growth feels good with a product like Keeps. Our hairline feels like the best part of us, and our follicles feel perfect and strong. Because with Keeps, they are. Hair loss stops with Keeps. For a special offer to get started, go to keeps.com/donutmedia or click the link in the description.
Hey, remember when we talked about that car being really light like 3 minutes ago?
But this car wasn't just powerful, it was also light as hell. Yeah, I remember.
Yo, I got a car that's even lighter.
No, you don't.
Yeah, it's the Kapar T1. This thing looks like a Formula One car. Well, that's because it was built to look and drive like a Formula One car and be street legal at the same time, which makes sense because the car was actually built and designed by a bunch of the guys who built the McLaren F1.
They probably know a thing or two.
Yeah.
About a thing or two.
They probably do. Weighing in at only 1,200 pounds, that's half the weight of the Miata now.
Holy smokes.
Powered by a 3.5 liter IndyCar Source V8 that produced 575 horsepower, giving it twice the power to weight ratio of a Bugatti Veyron.
Ooh.
The Kapar promised a 0 to 60 time of 2.5 seconds and 3 Gs of cornering grip.
Holy crap.
Which all sounds fantastic, but there were a couple of problems. For one, a journalist almost burned alive when his test car exploded into flames at 150 miles an hour during testing.
Yeah, that's not good for anybody.
That's not good. You don't want that. When Top Gear reviewed it, the floor fell out of the car.
Oh, yeah.
Fast and Furious style. Danger to manifold.
Yeah, that sounds like it would probably suck.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the CEO of Kapar passed away, and so did this project, but you can actually still find some of them on the market today. There was one for sale for about 200,000 quid.
Well, personally, I'd feel a little safer owning this next car. It's called the SARD MC8. It's a Toyota MR2-based supercar with a V8 that was built to compete in Le Mans. So if you're wondering about the name, SARD stands for Sigma Advanced Racing Development. And they're a tuning company and racing team from Japan that specializes in Toyotas. SARD took a Toyota MR2, they stretched the wheelbase by replacing the entire rear half with a tube frame, which housed a 1UZ FE V8. They also slapped 2 turbos on it.
Oh!
Yeah, so it made over 600 horsepower in that little thing.
Heck yeah.
Had to be a handful, but in a good way.
Yeah.
And they only made one. And even worse than that, it was a terrible race car. So I guess it's fine that they only made one, but the best it ever did, second to last.
Now, even though it looked cool, the project was abandoned, but that one road car disappeared for decades until just recently when they were spotted driving around in Japan.
Really?
Yeah. How this car was even found or made street legal, complete mystery. So our next car is a 1969 to 1971 Mercedes-Benz C111. It was so cool, they turned it into Hot Wheels, even though it never made it into production. The C111 was an engineering platform primarily, and it was meant to herald a new era of rotary-powered Benzes with a 1.8 liter, 3-rotor, 280 horsepower mid-engine Wankel power plant. Now this car was the first fiberglass reinforced plastic body Benz, never used in production though for its inability to meet safety standards. So they had the idea of fiberglass, but they just didn't make it right yet. And it was the first to use multi-link independent rear suspension. And they still use that on a bunch of different Mercedes-Benz to this day.
Hey, it kind of looks like that.
Yeah,
Similar color.
It's got similar color.
Gull-wing doors is cool though.
It seems like in the late 60s, car manufacturers were like, hey, we're gonna build these test vehicles to figure out kind of where the engineering and technology is gonna lead towards us in the future when it comes to production vehicles.
Yeah.
And they made decisions based off that. Now Mercedes, however, they couldn't get the car to run efficiently or cleanly, so they put rotaries to kaputs in 1971. And if there were any doubts, the fuel crisis of 1973 completely ended Mercedes' interest in rotaries. Okay, Joey, I bet you got another car.
I sure do. I was just thinking of it. It was the 1989 Cizeta V16T. This is an interesting car. So it had a transverse mounted V16 in 1989. It was an all-aluminum 6-liter, 64-valve, 8-camshaft, 2 pairs of 4, driven from the center of the block, custom-made V16 based off a pair of Lamborghini Urraco P30 V8s. And somehow it was made to fit transversely behind the driver in the Cizeta.
What?
Yeah. It was fuel-injected, supplied by a pair of Bosch K-Jetronic V8 injection systems. So they're just kind of taking a bunch of V8 stuff and like doubling down. It made sort of an unimpressive 540 horsepower out of all those cylinders. And but the 0 to 60 time was pretty good, estimated right around 4 seconds.
So it must have been light.
The V16T was the brainchild of Hollywood supercar tuner Claudio Zampoli and the father of disco music, Giovanni Giorgio Moroder. And if you don't know who that is, editor, hook him up.
My name is Giovanni Giorgio, but everybody calls me Giorgio.
Producing the all-aluminum hand-built body penned by Mura, Countach, and Diablo designer Marcello Gandini, caused glacial or very slow production. I mean, a hand-built body's got to take forever.
Yeah. Okay, it's got a rear hatch like this guy.
But check this out. Double pop-up headlights.
Whoa,
Double down pop-up headlights. There's like 10 lights
so
on the
many
front.
lights on this car.
You got to see where you're going.
Hey,
You're going that fast.
You want 4 fog lights plus another fog light above it?
Say less, fam.
Dude, we'll light up the whole
I wonder
world.
if it had a good sound system.
I don't know.
So, well, the father of disco was involved, so it should have.
Yeah, it probably had a record player in there.
So arguments over the slow process caused Moroder to leave the company as the first cars were finally rolling out to customers, which is unfortunate. Cizetta could never get US street legal status for the V16T thanks to our emissions and crash testing standards. The hand-built supercar barely made money despite the $280,000 estimated price. The 1990 market crash and Japanese bubble economy implosion financially sank Cizetta. Zampoli went bankrupt in the mid-90s. Still cool.
Yeah, the next car, one of my favorites, is a 1991 Vector W8.
These are like real poster cars, you know?
Oh, man.
Growing up, it was like,
Yeah, the Vector. Now, Vector initially introduced the Vector wedge shape in 1972. Now, the operational version of the car, the W2, was introduced in 1978, and a bunch of journalists who wrote for magazines drove this car, and they praised it. They're like, hey, this thing's pretty good. Now, the W8 was supposed to be made and produced in the 80s, but it took another 10 years for it to finally be made in the 90s. So 20 years of production to get this car out. And then the company went bankrupt. Oops. The company went under in 1993 after only making 17 cars. What a bummer. But of those 17 cars, they had some pretty cool features. The W8 was powered by a twin-turbo, 6-liter aluminum V8 that reportedly got you up to 218 miles per hour with a 0-60 of 4.2 seconds. Vector claimed 1,200 horsepower was achievable when they cranked the boost all the way up.
that's pretty mad.
Although this car was a pretty good chunk of change more money. It was $283,000 in 1990s cash.
That's like 10 billion today.
Yeah, it's a lot of dough. And despite it weighing 3,300 pounds, the thing could pull a G in the corners, which is pretty cool. All right,
Yeah, they're sweet.
angles.
Door stopper.
I don't know, I kind of like this thing.
Well, you oughta. It's really cool.
Yeah. Now, like a lot of other cars on this list, had a ton of problems with it. Car and Drivers test vehicles, they had 3 of them, had a bunch of issues. Also, they had a high-profile client buy one of these, Andre Agassi. Ever heard of him? He ended up suing the company because he had so many problems with his car.
Bummer.
Yeah, all of that led to the company's demise, and they shut down in 1993 after only making 17 cars. It's a real shame some of these cars didn't get made into production. That's a bummer. At least there's some of them out there, though.
And a lot of the things that were learned on a lot of these cars have, stuck around and made their way into other cars. So
For sure. We gotta thank the National Motor Museum for letting us come here, see this cool car behind us, see a bunch of cool cars around us. Come check these guys out if you're out here in Adelaide, Australia. Follow Zach at Zach Joe. Follow me at Jeremiah Burton. Follow Sarah Donut at Donut Media. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.